Hey, hello. I'm back from the Netherlands. A bit late. I'm doing this recording on Thursday because I've needed all this time to kind of rest. It's been a bit of a rough return, and already London has just come right around the corner. People basically going to be arriving in the UK tomorrow, so it's all happening really fast. I've not played any Vanguard since coming back from Netherlands, so here I am with my premium deck profile. This is a different deck profile to the ones you may have seen before. So I'm always like, I tried some weird little gimmick here and there, and this is kind of one of those lists where I want to play around with this other gimmick. So I'm just going to go through this deck profile. I'm trying a different format this time. Just let me know how you find it. And yeah, let's just get into it. By the way, this deck profile was used actually in a singles tournament, so in the end, I had to kind of go up against Dave and Maxime because we didn't get to actually do the team format. We were like one team away from actually having 8 teams, I believe it was. So, and then yeah, there was like the odd dropout team here and there that decided to go and play D instead. I want to play D, but not every single person had a D deck with them. So, yeah, singles it was. I got 4th place with it, which is yeah, not too bad. Of course, I wasn't really expecting too much in the sort of current format right now. With the way things are, I basically have a hard time whenever I go against Steam Maidens, so it's kind of just a toss-up really. Of like, I mean, it really just comes down too much to luck when dealing with that matchup. So here we go. 4 copies of Angelica. So I've been playing this. It's been helpful because against Link Joker especially, I actually went against Link Joker, and with this I could basically stop Freeze Ray from deleting my rear guards, or sorry, not deleting, locking my rear guards before, well, the deleting never actually came out in the end because it took too long to get drawn. And then after that there are 4 copies of Sea Yggdrasil, so that's there to enable boost so that my Norns can restand. Obvious stuff, but obviously you can run into this if you need to go against, say for example, Baron Magnus or that Kagero Stride that nukes the entire field, or even Transel's Messiah as well. Otherwise, 3 copies of Diorung. This is basically like a greed shade for Ket Sanctuary or United Sanctuary decks. You just can't add anything that isn't specific to one clan, so you can't add Cray Elementals back, you can't add Over Triggers back, so you have to be very careful with that. You can't add some of the Keta cards either, or most, well, basically all the Keta cards they printed in D series that aren't encounters. So that's also another thing you have to be careful of. It's not as great as Greed Shade for that reason, and because that Glypnir will always have like some element of advantage over it as well. So I wouldn't say this is strictly better than Glypnir, but I think there's just a higher rate that you'll actually activate the skill, which is kind of the point of using it. Then 4 Rujisa, so this is there. You can basically just check top 5, hope you get CO, but to be honest, there's not quite as many targets in this list because we're not playing Thread. So it's a bit of a hit and miss card, but the on-play Sorcerer 2 Regalias can be handy as well, and just having more Regalia names is kind of important, so that's another reason to play it. 4 copies of Norn. So Norn is obviously there to help restand. 3 Virachum, so this is there sort of to counter Steam Maidens, especially, but obviously you can use it against some other cards as well, like Chuchitura it's good against as well. And also like, maybe if you see like a random powerful Ray Guard, you can use against that as well. So it helps with just killing off triggers. You can use it against Nightmare Dolls. You can use it against there's something else I was thinking of, and then just I kind of just forgot about it. But yeah, just any of those kind of like rear guards that do things. I had 2 of these in my hand actually against Steam Maidens. I think I even had one on the field, but I can't remember. Or maybe it's one on hand, one on field, or maybe both in hand. I'm not sure. But basically, what happened was I actually managed to keep drawing these against Steam Maidens, but I still couldn't deal with them. So I think the first game was more so like I misjudged. I thought I had a heal in my hand for some reason. I didn't. So I ended up having too many 5k shields, which kind of messed me over. I never needed 2 copies of Ratrum, so that kind of misplay kind of cost me the game. But then I had a rematch in the semi-finals, and that was I went straight to 5 damage. I got hit by the OT, so I went from like 3 to 5, and I had like 3 or 4 PGs maybe. I'm not sure. Like I had some G guards and PGs, but obviously the smaller hand size was like, I think it might have been 8 or something. I'm not sure, but it just doesn't do anything against Steam Maidens because it's Steam Maidens. So there was basically like 2 Viratrums I could use, However, the problem was is that there was an Alul on the field, but then there was like 2 Aluls in bind zone. Alul is the grade 2 that extends to more attacks, so you can call. He could have called the grade 3 Chronojet from his bind zone, and then obviously get the Schlishma and have the Soul for it as well available. So I found that there just wasn't any way of winning. So that's just game. Just I died on first try basically. So that's sort of why I play Veratrum, but it's very awkward because even when I have it, there's always some sort of weird thing that comes up which makes it so that I've got Veratrum in my hand, yet I'm still not going to survive despite having my hand. So it's kind of weird sometimes. Just fate kind of deals you, deals you a good hand and deals your opponent the right field, I guess. So it's like extra layers. I mean, even if I get the right hand, it's like wow, I still can't survive stuff. So it's been pretty bad. Other times, yeah, sometimes you don't even draw this at all. So there's that as well. Oranges, 1 copy. So this is there because Diorong himself, he can basically Soul Blast 1, discard 1, return the same clan as your Vanguard from drop to hand. So Orange Witch Valencia, you can basically Soul Blast her to be the over trigger, and hopefully you can hit OT. Generally what you'd try to do is like in the late game, so once you've kind of like gone close to deck out, you use the Orange Witch to put the over trigger back, and then use Ordain Owl to increase your deck size so that you have more cards in deck. And then you go into the OT, guaranteed 100% win rate. But I couldn't do that on my turn 3 because there was a funny, weird game that I had against Maxime where basically I was in a really bad situation. I think he got like a draw trigger and a heal trigger, so he went down to 1. A draw PG, I think, I'm not sure which draw it was actually. It could be just a regular damage draw. But he got basically the draw and a heal, so his defense is kind of building. And I think I was already on my kind of getting to the back foot because I went second. So what happened there was I happened to have Vars, like more Vars in that game. So I used that to basically soul charge heavily. And I also did something which I never do, which is I basically had a column of Vars as well. Just to kind of, actually I can't remember why I did it to be honest, but I had the Vars. It may be just so I can try and push a bit of damage, but I was reluctant because I was calling a 10k shield and I was worried I wouldn't be able to survive the reindeer turn. But what happened was I was getting hit and the Vars were basically never attacked into, so I ended up doing like this really kind of unusual play that was only really possible in that situation because of the amount of Vars I had. So I basically like worked towards decking myself out, and I managed to find my CU Yggdrasil actually 2 times. And I managed to set things up. I did not get Ordain Owl sadly, so I can only retrieve, I retrieved just a random heal trigger, but Orange Witch put the over trigger back in deck. So I got it to a point where I couldn't deck myself out because with no Ordain obviously. So what I did was I tried to make so I had a high chance of hitting the OT, but it wasn't guaranteed. So I mean it was like 70% or something, I think, the success rate, but that's sort of like a rough approximation. So I got the OT hit through that, but I also used COU just sort of shuffle the deck as well after putting it to bomb. So I had like 1 CO that I used to get on, but then I used the CO other copy later on so that I can then shuffle the OT as well. But it was very improvised, convoluted turn that just kind of went from one thing to another repeatedly as well. So I wasn't really sure like how the actual the win itself would end up looking, except I was going to try and grasp at straws to hit the OT. So that was sort of my desperate comeback play because I didn't see a way out otherwise. Then there's 4 copies of VAR. VAR, as I mentioned earlier, it's good for soul charging yourself. And it can also counter charge as well, which is good. It's a Regalia name, Regalia grade 1 with 10k shield, the only one of its kind. 4 perfect guards. It's the only other Regalia card that has actual shield, 0 shield, but it's a perfect guard. Then we've got 2 copies of Ordain Owl, which can prevent deck out as well. And then also quite good with Orange Witch as well, but you can also add it with Diorong. So it's just very helpful because COU is basically a target that can gain power. Power new style, just any old start is fine. 4 heals because you need to defend yourself, obviously. 4 of the Strider crits, 3 of the GB1 crits because I wasn't really playing anything else. 4 Regalia crits because you need some Regalia names still anyway, and also it's decent if you do end up reaching GB1 because you do draw through your deck. If you have 2 of these, you can then give a unit 3k 2 times, which then makes a CEO Yggdrasil hit for a magic number. And then 1 vanilla overtrigger because we're not playing enough Regalias, so I'm not really sure about playing Armata Noah if you're doing that, because the thing is, if you get this, let's just say you have a Marduk turn, right? Obviously, if you get Armata Noah, it's really good with Yggdrasil because you have 2 drives and you have another 1 drive when you do your restand. So that's really good. However, when you're decking out, if you still have your overtrigger in the deck, then there's a bit of a problem because obviously what then happens is that Minerva is more important because you need the GB3 to then prevent your drive checks from happening. So you need to be able to erase your drive checks so that you can stop Armata Noah from actually decking you out. But to do that, you need to have 9 Regalia, or 6 Regalia Soul at least, to be able to do that. And obviously, if you end up brooking and finding your Regalia Souls because you're playing too many non-Regalias, then it just makes the drive check overtrigger more of a liability. So I think if you're playing more non-Regalias, I feel like this is the right overtrigger. But if you're playing more Regalias, then Armata Noah is worth considering. However, bear in mind that Orange Witch Valencia can be a bit awkward with Armata Noah because obviously if you're trying to deck yourself out, then you don't really want to be gaining drive checks often, unless you're already feeling comfortable with using Minerva's GB3, then you could always still play into Armata Noah, but it's just not the most powerful play, obviously. And then moving on to the G zone, we have basically 1 of the Genesis Dragon G Guard, so that's there to -2 crits basically. Then we have 1 Jagduragna. So Jagduragna is there as an alternate finisher to Minerva because you're not always going to have the Regalia Soul. The Guard Bursting can be useful. You can also deck people out with it, which happens very rarely, but against a deck like Grand Blue, it's quite possible. Even Vrachum could help with that. Then we've got, and actually Vrachum was what, so the other deck I was thinking of that you can use Vrachum against is Grand Blue as well, particularly Skull Dragons in a Bartholomew turn as well. Then we have Marduk. Marduk is there so you can basically stride, obviously during the turn where your opponent's on grade 2, or even if you just want to use, say for example, some of the resistance protections and things, because your opponent might have G guards that kill things and so on. Then we've got 1 copy of Amaruda. Amaruda is obviously a good way to get Soul Blast 15 as well at times, so that's helpful as well. It also has the draw 2 ability, so you can try and find CEO Yggdrasil if you're doing really bad on drawing into cards. 1 copy of Loria, it's GB1 G-Guard, which can basically prevent deck out as well and gain a lot of shield, and recycle cards that you want to draw into later. 1 Musipole, it's a counter charge, so if your opponent damage denies you and you have no counterblast to use for Norn, then you can use this. 2 of the Regalia G-Guard, so you can get 30k shield as well with that too. So you need to just have like 1 of every grade in the drop zone. And then we've got 4 of the Minerva Stride. Basically, you can do free advantage by having 4 and 3 drives without using any counterblast, which is quite nice. 2 copies of Earth. Earth can be used to randomly kind of finish a game, depending on matchup. And then Dismal as well, because you need to protect your CEO Yggdrasils, especially if you start hitting damage triggers and your opponent starts attacking to your CEOs. Then we have 1 copy of Seabreeze, so this is mainly for the Make Colony matchup, because it's a bit awkward playing against it, especially when you're Soul Blasting, because Gridora prevents you from G-Guarding, which means you can't Soul Charge. So Marduk isn't actually that ideal, so you kind of use Seabreeze for that. So yeah, that's kind of it for the deck profile for Regalia, based on the Netherlands event singles. So this is basically kind of like the end of the pre-history collection format. So I need to kind of get a hold of a case of that set though. So I'm kind of looking forward to playing it, but I'm not looking forward to how apparently the Hallmarks Messiahs are very underprinted. So I am kind of worried that people might drop off from playing the format if that happens. But otherwise, yeah, I mean the cards are quite fun, at least. So until then, I will see you guys later. Bye. Oh, and also see you at London if you're there as well. Goodbye.